Today, we're 13,000 Nunavimmiut living in a homeland that's rapidly changing. To make for a better future for us all, let us look at what we're doing to secure our language, our culture, and our full inherent rights within Canada. For thousands of years, Indigenous people in Canada lived according to their own needs and traditions. Inuit were self-reliant, in control of their lives and their destiny. When European colonizers arrived, they took control and squeezed Indigenous people onto tiny parcels of the land. Inuit were among the last to lose control of their land and their lives. And now the time has come to get it back. Here's the story of how we in Nunavik are working to make that happen. Nunavimmiut have always known that this is our land and that we should decide how to run it. That's why, in April 1972, 3 hunters from Inuit and Puvernitu set out on a trip that few could imagine.
4,000 miles, taklimang katapian. Taklimang katapian yung alok sa marut, tabong. Simulim, sikitin na tabong alok sa mata. Kung nakalagulang ko tayo mga kabat sa ta, iyahal ka ta.
Along the Hudson's Bay coast, then through forests until they hit asphalt, traffic, and the streets of Quebec City.
Nakalok sa mga ito. Silipat siya sa mga tabangan, muna yun. Sabi nga, tiko rin ako hatit ni, alahin mo ito ka, halok sa mga ito. Sabi ko pa may gumak na ay lang ito ka. Sabi niya, ay lok sa mga ito. Alahin mo ulit, ilok sa mga kangan, sabi nga, pura sa lok sa mga ito. Ay lok sa mga ito, nga malyo, tiko rin alahin mo ito. Ak orok mo, kugo, teknikatulungan.
The Premier had just launched his James Bay hydroelectric project. We may never know his response, but the Inuit were clear.
Taman na tawang liyak na video. Akot liyak katawag naman. Tema liyak po nga. Tema liyak katawag sa mag-iamit.
At that time, when Hydro-Quebec began damming our rivers, Indigenous people had no rights in any Canadian law. Together with the Cree, we took Hydro-Quebec and the Quebec government to court. And the judge decided that, after all, we did have rights to the land. But how much had to be decided in negotiations? When we sat down at the table, the Quebec government put the knife to our throats.
Quebec government mga sakkusakaya hakpusi. Sunamilyoni alla simarumik ilsinupibilla hutawni aktumik uhagayalaungintini.
It was colonial blackmail. The land is what defines us as a people. The James Bay Agreement has brought us many benefits. But it was a compromise, and our leaders went through agony before signing. In the end, the agreement split the people of Nunavik. The disagreement from that time has been a heavy burden on us all. As we now push ahead towards self-determination, the first step is to undo this injustice and win back our rights to the land. On that quest, we need to unite. The James Bay Agreement was special, a rushed, incomplete document. In return for us giving up our rights to our land, it created different structures intended to improve our lives. The Makivik Corporation is in charge of our land claims money. Makivik represents Inuit beneficiaries of the James Bay Agreement. Makivik deals with both Quebec and Ottawa because the federal government is responsible for the rights of all Indigenous people in Canada. The Kativik regional government is different. In French, it's called a regional administration, not a government but an agency operating under the government of Quebec, funded by Quebec and Ottawa to provide services to everyone who lives in Nunavik. The KRG administers the Kativik police force. The school board and the health board, however, are agencies of the Quebec government and get their budgets from Quebec government departments. Altogether, it was a difficult arrangement.
Iluna limatseng ni mailingalak tu Lajoie lagi hatalak si mangi mailangatigun. Taga may gaswalakati tamakwati miuyuit. Ang hatigin ni mi nalunak tao mayut. Piyagya tuyo si mayut taman na pinaswak sugu. Ubagulu tayo may tulilak si mangi suta inut suta.
1975 takkuninga sakkugilangan ni sanakkotigilangan ni bagut sibumu sakotigilangan tini uimat katavinik yuratsuti uimat aurubini tuti sana yau simare sanakkoti hagar tapiga sortimagatta kinyaurak tagautatnego.
With the James Bay Agreement in place, every Nunavik community made plans for better housing, roads, and recreational facilities. But the Quebec government failed to respond.
Takuninga angayukhautigalan niniwakta umayuni takukalla hayak na talo kumalawa umagalawa talo pukkinik sangin nikisiani pinaswak hati tawat suta.
Every snowplow or water truck was a separate project. Stacks of paperwork, years of delay.
Kavamakut ohakay nakama ipigusut si mangiluang nga ukiukta tumiunik amalo piusitinik uhausitinik tukisi mangisutilo amalo inusitinik inusuta tukisi mangisutik pinaswa hatigiya haksugit taman ninilatak tawt lugo afealut situin nakatta si majuit tukisi manginikuminum.
Ottawa and Quebec were quarreling among themselves, passing the buck.
At the time, we had over 40 different funding agreements with the government of Quebec and different sectors with different ministries. They were all different. It was hell. It was hell to manage.
When we signed the James Bay Agreement, we agreed to pay taxes, and we are entitled to receive the same level of services as Quebecers in the South.
Taka makibig kadre mo tukuipat. Tayo na sagme, tayo na Eric Gordo, tayo na luangwa.
But that was not happening. So, like the Crees, we took the Quebec government to court for breaching the agreement. In the end, that's what it took. Down south, the Parti Québécois government was trying to separate Quebec from the rest of Canada. That would cut our links with Ottawa, so we strongly opposed separatism. Our relations with Quebec were chilly. But a new face appeared in the PQ cabinet.
PQ kukabamautilluwi tanna kabamapin ministerial lugi chavret.
Pour être honnête, j'ai adoré la mentalité des Inuits. J'ai eu plaisir même à converser avec des gens comme Johnny Adams, Peter Tatami, plusieurs maires de municipalités, Maggie.
There was a new understanding that something had to give. In 1995, Quebec, Ottawa, and Makivik set up a commission to improve how services were delivered. It was called the Nunavik Commission. It was about improved services and administration, better funding, addressing immediate day-to-day concerns. More fundamental questions about our inherent rights would be dealt with later. Still, Inuit and Cree were charging Quebec with failure to live up to the James Bay Agreement, both in terms of money and implementation. Our claims were in the millions of dollars.
Moi, j'ai été scandalisé de voir que il y a des négociations qui ont été entreprises avec certaines communautés. Mais c'est 1 million, 2 millions, 3 millions par année en négociations qui n'avancent pas. On voulait ouvrir le débat parce que nous, on disait faut négocier, faut arrêter des confrontations.
In fact, Quebec was secretly negotiating with the Cree, whose claims were bigger than ours. The result was announced early one morning.
A groundbreaking deal was signed today way up in northern Quebec, one between the Grand Council of the Cree and the provincial government.
Una malugut sagal titaoloqsimayugu pimmarimmi nuitau yuhatuinnaria halangamma sunau mga sunamiuliha mga hawimanata.
We are the owners of the land, not the janitors.
Oqautiyorloqsimurangallaygu Cree unagattai kupemmiun angahatigittuviniullaimata piyaritchutlu kupekkukavumakkuginit pimmarikallamit qallunaatitiutaiyorloqsimaru lawiiviititiut pay the brav lajorummit sanaqquti qittei tupat umigiallagati utigisimuravu tupattauchurattita.
Today, Quebec and the Cree finalized last October's tentative deal in a historic signing ceremony.
The new deal between the Grand Council of the Cree and Quebec went far beyond the James Bay Agreement. It included the damming of 2 more rivers on Cree territory and the expansions of logging and mining development. In return, they received $140 million for the following 3 years, with a promise of $70 million per year afterwards. As soon as they heard, our leaders picked up the phone. Johnny Adams and Anthony Itusha went to a meeting in Quebec City.
Katigiangalaqsimayavu ammalo taakkua kavamakku uvattino manisigiqsuti kiinauyani isumamiutigilangayattini 100 million ni manisiloqsimayui.
100 million over 10 years. No strings attached.
Insulted yo yuloqsimarut ipigutu hatigitchunu tuna hotigiyangilwa sigatta kinya rinnamu ko manitjunnaluwi asiulakkomata taimaisumaruvinuloqsimavoltui.
The offer was only about money, a tiny fraction of what the Cree got, and nothing about ways to improve the James Bay Agreement, our lives, and our rights to the land. The Quebec government didn't take us seriously.
Malikkunga. Nilligiallangimmaqatsuno taikkualuilavo sikutsayakkani nuatsisilaorsimayunga. Taga aninnalialigatta hanuiligiallangimmaqatsuta taakkununga. Taikani ikaaqvialummi Quebec City mi Highway 20 liariami ta Pierre Laporte Bridge Lajoie ta taavanianigu sima liqsuta Louis Maximo uhalaviuloqsimayugu kavamakku uhalaqataarmata katigiallarumatsutik ilaaniungituorsutik taga taikani utiriasilaorsimayugu ikaaqvialummi aniguutisimaliqsuta.
That indeed was a turning point. 7 months later, in 2002, Makivik and KRG signed the Sanaqotik Agreement with Quebec. It gave us more say in defining our needs. It brought more money, much more. It's good for 25 years, until 2027. The Sanaqotik Agreement gradually made our lives better, but it did not restore our rights to the land and heal the divisions among Nunavimmiut. To win back our inherent rights, we have to deal with Ottawa, the federal government. Several years earlier, Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau had begun his campaign to renew Canada's constitution.
Ms. Mary Simon of the Inuit Committee on National Issues.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister.
That became the opportunity for all Aboriginal Canadians to get our rights formally recognized.
Question of equality.
The first colonizer to expound on Aboriginal rights was King George III of England, 250 years ago. His royal proclamation of 1763 actually recognized our ancestors as sovereign nations, with agreements to be made on a nation-to-nation basis. But soon, waves of settlers arrived. They wanted land, ever more land. Treaties were signed and promises broken. An earlier king had given the entire north to the Hudson's Bay Company. In 1869, the company sold the north to the Canadian government. They called it Rupert's Land. We became tenants of our own land. Finally, in 1912, Ottawa handed Nunavik over to the province of Quebec. Inuit had no say in the matter, and the government of Quebec wanted nothing to do with us for the next 50 years. By the time Mr. Trudeau convened the Constitutional Conference, Aboriginal rights had disappeared, and no Indigenous organization had a seat at the table. While First Nations appealed to Parliament in Britain, Inuit leaders went to Ottawa and unlocked the door to Indigenous participation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to introduce on my left, we got Mark R. Gordon. He's also the member of Inuit Committee on the National Issues.
Provincial premiers fought tooth and nail against us. They did not want to share their powers.
We certainly in Alberta do not accept the fact that there should be anything other in our Constitution than two sovereign governments, the federal and the provincial level of government.
But Inuit had fought hard, and the Prime Minister had visited our homeland. He knew what we wanted, and in the end, that's how we prevailed. The result was Section 35 of Canada's new Constitution in 1982. It affirms Aboriginal and treaty rights, but the premiers snuck in the word existing to curtail what we could do. For the government, the compromise we had made with the James Bay Agreement showed the way.
As a stepping stone was the James Bay Agreement. There was a precedent for doing something that seemed to work. I don't think Section 35 would have happened without it.
With our rights now in Canada's Constitution, you might have expected to see rapid changes, like Indigenous communities getting access to capital and starting more businesses, adding muscle to local government. But no, not so fast.
There were really two parts to the story. One was getting Section 35, and then the second chapter in the story was trying to figure out what it meant.
Gary Yapsley was part of the Inuit legal team during the constitutional battle. Section 35 was supposed to be fleshed out in a series of First Ministers' conferences.
Good evening. It was an historic day for Canada's Native people, Indian, Inuit, and Métis. For the first time ever, they joined together to negotiate for their rights under the new Constitution.
These were broadcast live on national television and told all of Canada what Indigenous peoples thought about their rights.
We have had a long history of educating European Canadians of what Inuit are, and we're prepared to keep doing that, and we're prepared to sign this accord.
I would say to the Aboriginal people that they're doing pretty well, and I hope that they will continue and pick up speed.
I also think that the First Ministers' conferences gave Aboriginal leaders and Aboriginal communities an opportunity to think about and put more substance to their own visions of self-government, their land rights, and a number of questions that are far more detailed and are better resolved and clarified in those local conversations.
The Aboriginal people of Canada have the rights to the land and water and to the resources thereof, which have served as basis for the self-sufficiency and the development of Native community.
But in the end, the Third Constitutional Conference in 1987 failed to put flesh on Section 35.
And to my fellow First Ministers, I ask you quite bluntly to recognize that the essential issue is one of political judgment and political will.
The fact that we have occupied this land from time immemorial is the difference between an Aboriginal person and a non-Aboriginal one.
But that doesn't mean it was a waste of time.
That exercise in itself, to me, is the foundation of what we now call reconciliation. It raises the question of where do Aboriginal communities fit in the modern nation state that is Canada.
The politicians made us wait, but even so, we negotiated amendments to the James Bay Agreement, one after the other. From the start, Makivik had a team to study how Nunavimmiut used the land. The so-called Nilka Agreement gave us back the rights to the shorelines and the islands.
Kisaya nange hati ga swakte ujugut ange hatta lok se mangi jugut amat suminga iti pusanga ngani tigo sigo magatta pitu tikit sugu inu Nunavimmiut atulla ga simu mata piu se hamik tuan ti pusa pitu nyana tu sungi mata kai mangani to halo asiminu kamagi yaula de silu Nunavimmiut nyungi hikatta limangani sittami tulimani atu hatta simam mata Nunavimmiut hikattangin.
It took 14 years to negotiate, an important step towards regaining ownership of our land.
What Nilka has done is establish the homeland and give the Nunavik Inuit now the platform to move into the next phase of political development and in terms of self-determination or governance.
Self-determination has proven to be an elusive goal. But in part 2 of this episode, we'll see how finally the stalemate was broken and our fight for our rights picked up the pace.